And in today's video, I am at Silent Disco 2026 with co-curators Graham Crowley and Justin Hibbs. So get ready for this absolutely stunning exhibition. Gallop past the motorcycles, head up the narrow staircase, and be ready to see some of the most intelligent and beautiful art you're ever likely to see. The kind of things you'll never find at the Tate or the Royal Academy.
Hey everybody, Robert Dunt, ArtTop10.com, and I'm very excited to be here today with Graham Crowley and Justin Hibbs at Silent Disco 2026. Graham, Justin, give us a little intro to this bonanza of art.
Okay, I think it's the fifth or sixth iteration of the project. It's a group show which essentially I curate in what is my studio building, workshop and stuff, which I've cleared out especially for the occasion. Weeks of toil and whatever. And it's the last one in this space. Next year it moves to the art station in Saxmundham, and Claire will be, Claire's been great. She's taking it on for next year, but she will take it on as a biennial event, which is a nice way of programming it. That means it remains in East Anglia, one stop up the branch line from Wickham Market in Saxmundham, and then it's at present negotiating with the contemporary British painters, with Nabi Price and the rest of them, to have it on alternate years. So 27 will be Saxmundham Art Station, 29, 31, and then 28, 30, and we'll see how long I've got. I'm not sure. Yes.
Don't worry, we're just going to inject you with stuff.
Yeah. On ice.
On ice, yeah. Exactly. Graham, let's kick it off. And what was the one thing you wanted to say before?
One thing I do want to say is that this being the last one in Wickham Market in my studio building, I invited Justin to co-curate with me, and so I'll do the first part of the walk around with the works that I have selected, and then Justin, who's also one of the people I've invited to be involved, has actually then invited 8 other people, I think.
Nice.
Seven other people, and Justin will be talking and addressing their work after I've done the walk and talk around the show generally.
Brilliant. That sounds cool.
Right.
And let's start off with this little beast in the corner, shall we?
Now anybody who's familiar with the Silent Disco projects or the name Roland Hicks will know what that is. Roland's work is, as I say, I think it's breathtaking. Trompe-l'oeil historically was always a bit of a novelty. Barnum and Bailey's sort of go-to rednecks and stuff out in the Midwest. It was never really taken seriously. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. It lacked theory and it lacked historical or psychological kind of resonance. It was about gee willikers. It was kind of thought it was real, that sort of stuff. And of course, earlier yesterday, one of your guys who came to help you bring your piece in looked at it. The van driver said something like, "Oh, blimey, just bricks." Like that was there you go, way back to Carl Andre with etc.
Classic reaction.
Now,
just got a couple of bricks here.
That's art, is it? Right. Now this is not what it seems, right? It's entirely trompe-l'oeil. There are no bricks. Oh, by the way, it's called Bricolage. Yes, thank you. Spoken like a true German. So basically, everything you see here is trompe-l'oeil, right? Everything is painted. The whole of the surfaces. This is not chipboard, and these are definitely not bricks. Engineering bricks, as they're called, right? I had to, when I first put it up, I had to check the edges because I thought, my godfathers, he's actually gone and chipped the edge. And then I thought, no, he hasn't. He's depicted.
It's painted, isn't
it? Yes, everything you see is painted. That is not an old, a 300-year-old piece of deal with some paint splashed on it. And this is no more, it's not a bit of melamine, chipboard melamine, any more than their bricks. But of course, the thing that I think is absolutely delightful is the fact that, of course, that can't be the case, because who the hell in their right mind would imagine that a piece of kind of, I don't know, some cross between elastoplast and sellotape would hold a house brick up onto the wall?
That's very good. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's delightful. It's absurd. It's misleading. It's perplexing. It's terrific.
I had absolutely no idea that it wasn't a real brick till we came over to look at it.
Really?
I hadn't looked at it in enough detail.
And there's you, the expert on
There's
art.
the expert on art. Exactly. That's it. That's my official title.
Should get out more.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Right. The next piece is a stunningly concise landscape called Change of the Light. Let me just get that right. Hold on. Yes. A Change in the Light. Yes. Okay. And of course, anybody who knows their art history will know about the kind of post-Albach, Kossoff, Dennis Krefeld and so on. There's a certain kind of language here that's a convention that's fallen into the the art lexicon of British landscape painting. But what Simon has done is there's this wonderfully disruptive sort of element, that the idea that the light from the landscape, metaphorically, is somehow, formally, plastically changed the picture directly, without any compromise, without any acknowledgement that it's a landscape. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
one other question.
Yes. One other question.
This is one of these ones you like.
Yeah.
So do you think it was a mistake, these red bits in the background?
When you say mistake, do you mean he mistook it for blue? I mean, what's the nature of that?
I'm just winding you up.
You see, well, I don't know about that. You try harder than that.
I'll try harder.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
In that case, I'm going to definitely say what I think I like most about Joe Whittle's thing is that really circuses are just places of happiness and fun, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's a bit more complicated than Joe's is a place of kind of absence, abandonment, very much the idea of the transient. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to go into her life history too much, but she spent a lot of her early childhood in the middle of Saudi Arabia. Right. Okay. Now I've got to tell you the title of this piece as well. It's called The Impossibility of Love. Yeah. Now, if that, it stops you in your tracks really, because you think, what the hell's going on here? Yeah. And as I say, I think these are exquisite. Somebody who at one of the senior, one of the organising members, moving forces in the Contemporary British Painters, said that Jo digs deep. She really does. Okay, this is really. She won the Contemporary British Painting Prize in 2019.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. Anyway, and she's been in the Moors quite a few times as well. But there is an essay that she's written recently about that's titled "The Unquiet Landscapes," right? Okay. And it's a riposte or a follower. It's a reply, if you like, 35 years later, to the book called Unquiet Landscapes. If anybody can find it on the internet, and they should, obviously, I'll give it to you. Yeah. It's one of the finest pieces of writing about contemporary painting and the psychology and practice. The other thing about Jo is she's a 1/3 of what's called the Heavy Water Collective, okay? Oh, cool. And the Heavy Water Collective have been into various large museums and collections all over Britain, well, particularly near Sheffield and in the Midlands and the North. And the latest project is Gathering Landscapes at Weston Park Museum. It is stunning. It's disruptive, it's entertaining, and of course it's interspersed with their work, some of which is ceramics by Jo, and her ceramics are spectacular as well. Pretty cool. It is very cool. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Right, and this is by Sally Crowley.
Right? Oh, Sally Crowley.
Yes. Oh, you recognise the name. Oh.
Right. Check it out. Now, what's it made on?
Well, Sally makes the paper, so the drawing, so the whole project is one thing fused in another. So the drawing emerges from the paper. It's partial, and it's as if. A lot of the work in the show is about the materiality of the projects, of the pieces. And this is no exception. So there are moments when you begin to focus on the shepherd's hut, which is the title of the piece, by the way. And then the interference, the surface of the paper. There's something quite exquisite about that.
Crack us on, Graham. What have we got to you?
Right. The next piece is by Jenny Eden. It's called Nunchi. And I think Nunchi is a Korean, it's not quite a deity. I think it's a spirit or an idea or an ethos. It's something that equates to what we colloquially refer to as sixth sense.
Oh, right. Okay. Cool.
But when I saw that, I thought this is a fascinating and slightly disturbing painting.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, and then suddenly I thought, why am I thinking about Titian's Flame of Marsyas?
Oh, that's quite an interesting one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Partly because the brushwork is exquisitely essential. But the Titian one is, there's no blood as such. There's very little blood. It's not the gore. I saw this and I couldn't help but think about, this is probably what he looked like after they finished with him, okay? Yeah. I mean, it's a really extraordinary piece of work.
I can't help thinking it looks like there's a goat about to escape out of the centre of it.
Well, that's your Nunchi, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, the next piece is by a woman called Loubna Rizqi, R-I-Z-Q-I. Now, Loubna, I came across her, I was mentoring her for the Turks correspondence course. Cool. At the time, she was living in Morocco, I think, right? Okay. She impressed me as one of the most well-informed, intelligent people I'd had on the course. You know, I'd been mentoring, and I enjoyed the mentoring with Turks. Yeah. But the wonderful thing about it, she now lives in Paris, by the way, and of course, anybody who knows anything about the history of Constable knows that Paris was key to his becoming Constable. You know, it was a moment that made him. Yeah. And this is called Constable's Clouds.
Oh, right.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Lovely, tender little painting that's so dependent upon paint. And again, it's one of these paintings that I've talked about before. It's both the thing itself and the subject. Yeah. And the two are so finely balanced as to be kind of simultaneously experiential. Yeah. I can see the clouds, I can see the painting. Yeah. And the reason that's hanging cheek by jowl with Sarah Grant's Indoor Market, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, is that here every brushstroke amounts to or infers something. So we've got the same kind of sort of duality between image and material paint, and the same here. But I just think that's absolutely brilliant. She's also one of those people who's. I first saw her work in Unquiet Landscapes, the show that Joe Whittle curated at Yorkshire Art Space, and they were just shrubs on the sides by the landscape viewed as if it were for a train. Yeah. And you think, oh, I've seen that dozens of times. But then I suddenly looked at the way they were made, and I thought they could only be paintings.
Yeah. Oh, I see. That's interesting. And I assume
this is definitely a painting. It's a gorgeous painting. It celebrates the materiality.
But I guess what you like most is the pretty colours.
Yeah, that's right, Rob. Yeah. Right. Now, these are two drawings by a woman called Jackie Berridge. Jackie has shown in paintings in earlier silent discos. Now,
what the hell is that thing on top of the dog?
Well, it's homunculus, perhaps. I don't know, but it's a kind of sort of. It's got little reins, steering the doggy. But the thing that most people encounter or misconstrue is the fact that they think that if somebody said, oh, it's pictures of little girls holding a bunch of flowers, or another little character that maybe it may not be a girl riding a horse or a doggy, watched by another dog, and you think, oh, that sounds really charming. But in actual fact, this is the stuff of nightmares.
Oh, it's fully warped.
It's so far out of whack, I don't know where to start. I mean, the word nasty always sounds so pejorative, but in the case here, it puts them right on the edge, because I don't know whether that's sort of bad makeup, clown makeup, or whether it's what we're looking at here. It's terrific.
It's kind of freaky, but
they are.
That is the best thing on earth, that little thing on the riding there.
Yeah. As I say, more homunculus than child, or very young homunculus. This is I wonder if you can guess. Yeah, this is called Light Industry 2, and it's one of those places. I mean, the painting I exhibited and won the Moors with in 23 is a similar image. It's similar subject matter, but the thing that I absolutely love about painting and thrill to see in paintings by others, or paintings generally, is this wonderful ambiguity between the kind of physicality and then the moment that it just touches on illusion. Yeah. And it's so fragile. And then there are moments where the level of the illusion, differ wildly. Here, it's just a dark area, isn't it? Somebody once asked me, so what are all these shelves, all these things on the shelves in this workshop? I said, I haven't got a clue. I don't care. It's not important. I paint shadows. That was my kind of, what should we say, the title of the show that I did at the Walker last year, which incidentally had 30,000 visitors.
30,000 visitors? Check you out. Oh, that's actually pretty darn good.
Yes, Rob, thank you very much. I see you obviously up on the statistics. And this is a smashing. There's something bleak about this painting. And I think what's important is it's one thing to depict or want to depict a subject that is bleak in your mind's eye, right? Yeah. But actually paint something that is kind of sort of bleak in term visually, right? And these cranes, these skeletal cranes and the patchy sky. This is by Phil Porter, and I think it's called Cranes, but I wrote it. Phil suddenly remembered earlier today that I hadn't confirmed that, or I'd forgotten what he told me. Yes. Hold on. Yeah, Cranes. But anyway, and Phil, incidentally, well, I think he's in one of the Rogue studios in Manchester. Okay. Yeah, and works closely with the gallery there. And he's written about my work. He wrote a terrific piece, which I've got on my website. Oh, no. And he's. I think there's something there. Really do.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's broken. It's partial, and it's unkept. You know what I mean? It's not fussy in any sense.
Sinking away into some water down here at the bottom that couldn't really be there.
Also, it's hard to know when that might have been made, or for me anyway.
Yeah, that's right. I think I'm thinking 1950s or 30s depression.
It could easily be that period.
Anyway, right, onward and upward. Right.
Okay.
Right. Now this is by Twinkle Troughton.
Okay.
And Twinkle has written an extraordinary piece, a brilliant piece about London plane trees and, you know, the history and her relationship with them and you know.
London plane tree?
Yeah, the plane tree.
What are they?
Oh, Christ, where do you start on a question like that?
Quickie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is the ornithological, the gardening correspondence moment. Those are the trees that you see, they're practically ubiquitous in the London streets.
Oh, okay.
Because they're hardy, they stand up to pollution. Unlike some of us, okay. But anyway, this is Twinkle Troughton's piece, and it's this. Oh dear, the seed, something. And anyway, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it justice. But it's the thing that I find fascinating and exciting about Twinkle's work is again the way that she has sort of marshalled the paint in this most exquisite and. That she uses some varnishes, solvents to lift the paint and remove it and then stabilise it. It's exquisite. She was at City and Guilds, did an MA there recently. Yeah.
I like it. It's like crazy wood sprites bursting out.
That's interesting. Yeah, with the spirits of the trees. Yeah. Yes. It's broken again. It's got that wonderfully fragile.
I think it's frightening as well.
Okay, Rob. Doesn't take much, does it? Sorry, there we are. That's better. Right. And this is by Donna McLean. It's called Entertainment. And again, maybe it's just my sort of my education showing, but I suddenly thought, hold on, why am I thinking of Lust Maninus? Yeah. And then it's what looks like a little sort of reflection in what probably is a mirror or a picture or something. But it's one of those casual glance moments where you scrutinise the familiar to such an extent that you make it unfamiliar. One of the big sort of ideas, tropes in art and literature. It's the way the light passes through it as well. In fact, curious enough, obviously I've got a bit of a what's it to, light being a big thing, or shadow for me. But there's something about the idea of people enjoying or suddenly realising the phenomena that sort of makes this all hang together.
Okay.
The light, yeah. And also another thing is I'm fascinated by reflection and shadow because they're ubiquitous but intangible. And I think that's a wonderful kind of subject or simile for painting. Now, by the way, they're hung together because of a rather domestic thematic, okay? Very different approaches. This is Mindy Lee, and Mindy has a neurodiverse son, right? Okay. So the screen for him, it's called it's called Dopamine Hit. And we all know about the screen time and addictive and the chemistry of, well, we don't all know about dopamine, but I'm not going to get into that now. So here he is enjoying the screen while she gets on with her life. It has a few quiet moments. But the one thing I loved about Mindy's work is the fact that we've got this kind of embroidery hoop, which became synonymous with kind of period drama, particularly Austen drama. So-and-so in the whole, Emma would be making a needlepoint, and then, Mr. So-and-so would throw a book at her or whatever. Now, this guy was at the Royal College, and, there's about 4 or 5 people in the show who were including Joe and, Christopher Cook over there, and Alex Price over there, yeah. And this is by Lee Curtis. Lee was at the Royal College while I was Professor of Painting. This is called night fishing. And anybody knows anything about fishing, the least casual form of fishing is night fishing. Because A, you have to go out with sort of special equipment to be able to see them, i.e. red light, not to disturb the fish. But his absolutely terrific paintings. The one thing I enjoy about Lee is that he's got a wonderful kind of investment in the project. In fact, he's involved in a band called The Plan, and they've got the Kirshner cover, which is augmented by Lee's paintings as well on the inner sleeve. And there, it's to be sought out. I think it's called Mountain View, the album. It's terrific. Right, and enough with the promos. Now, reverting to the neurodiverse. This is Anna Johnson, right? Now, Anna, I've known her for several years. This is we'll start here with what is ostensibly it is, not ostensibly about it really is, a very tender, unremarkable portrait of a dog, her dog presumably, okay? Yeah. Right. Now, this is where it's as if she's she's a very accomplished painter. I'll leave it at that. I've seen loads of her work, very accomplished. But there is a part of her that she wants to address through painting and through analysis. And Anna identifies as neurodiverse, right? And when she started to show me, took her quite a while because this was all I knew about Anna. Right. Okay? But there was, meanwhile, because these are both painted probably almost simultaneously in 2025. This was for public consumption. This is the self that I want people to see me as. But here is this other inner self that's battling to get out. This kind of, because when I saw it, I said to her, looks to me like somebody described a Miro to you over the phone and you'd never seen it. That's a good description. Well, I'm not sure actually. Anyway, she took it in good heart. It's basically, this is the more subconscious. Anna, as I say, identifies as neurodiverse, right? Yeah. Okay. And this really matters. Here's the 2 birds that seem to be pecking at the corpse of a 3rd bird. I'm not an analyst, so I'm not going to go into the whole of that
that's so
PTSD
weird.
Type thing.
I hadn't seen it at all. I saw there's a big mask with 2 eyeballs.
No, well, that's because of the way we're imprinted. But if you look down here, you see the beak and the seeds, the food from inside the gut of this 3rd, and this faith, there's the beak and the head. You get it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And 2 legs might just be a bird. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
there's something, Anna is trying to find a more authentic self through the work. And quite frankly, it's some of the most moving and kind of profound work in the whole show, in a way, in humanistic terms. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
So before we move around to this bit, do you feel any theme for the show coming together that you hadn't, all the things, have they fallen together in some
that's a very interesting question. I think once Justin has made his contribution, we can address that again. Because I think there is a certain set of values, not a thematic. Okay. I strongly believe that, I'm writing at present about the disconnect between big institutions like the Tate, the Hayward and the Academy, Royal Academy. The disconnect between the administrators, the curators and the community of practice like ourselves. Yeah. And the growing importance of the contemporary British painters as a vehicle for discourse and for community, building a sense of community. And that's what this project has always been about. I'm not interested and never have been interested in celebrity. I think it's toxic. it's part of what I regard as a toxic triangle. You know, celebrity, capital, and media, and the three drive each other till we end up with 6 names that are household names who can't paint their way out of a brown paper bag and are conceptually barren, shallow, right? Okay, but I think we can touch upon that later.
We should definitely keep it in mind as we wander around.
And that the other side of that coin is that I think we're very soon we're going to be facing a serious reset in terms of values. Yeah, and the John Moores last year, ambition wasn't sort of 10-footers. 6-footers in Constable's case. The 85-90%, the majority of paintings could be hung above the mantelpiece. Now that would be a put down historically. But there's some serious shifts going on, and I think that's one of the things I've been trying to do here is bring that kind of shift of values. Because all the work here is intelligent, mindful, and involves application rather than sort of bonkers spontaneity or somebody feeling a bit sad again. Which is 1920s expressionism, which is, in my view, totally unsustainable. This is a piece. This again, rather like Jackie Berridge's work. You laugh when you see it, and then you think, God, it looks like some really evil gargoyle, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The way that sort of, if Mickey Mouse could stare into your soul, that's what would be happening.
I was kind of thinking it's like, I don't know, you'd imagine seeing this on the architecture in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes. Oh, it's dystopian, definitely.
Definitely has that. I mean, it's like, are there cameras in the 2 bigger beads? Come on.
Okay. By the way, the title as well confirms that suspicion. It's called Sycophant, which is obviously a conflation of psychopath and sycophant. And of course, with my, slightly cultivated air, it's also Janus as well. The mask, the two-faced god, one facing or one smiling. It was adapted to the mask, the dramatis persona. The one smiley and the one tragic, etc. But here we're not told what it is experiencing. It just stares back at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard not to read the pareidolia, like the
image.
I mean, it's like you say, a double.
It's either blatantly obvious, but once you do get to it, you're not sure what significance that carries. Or what you think. So that's a fabulous piece by Phil Illingworth, by the way. Phil Illingworth. I think Phil's connected with the Thameside Gallery. Yeah. Anyway, and also with the Contemporary British Painters. Oh. Right. Now, this is by a guy called Pete Clark. Pete, terrific work. It's got some work in the Walker Art Gallery in the collection there. This piece is about, I think it's a coastal erosion in the Isle of Wight, about a little hut that was falling into the sea. But the way he's painted it is brilliant, because everything looks as if it's not quite connected to the next bit. You get it? Everything's, and it's called Endless. Well, and then the ESS are obliterated. So the whole sense of, again, rather like Joe's work, the idea of the provisional, the kind of transient.
Right, next one.
Right, this is by Sharon Beavan. Sharon's brilliant painter and teacher. This, for her, I mean, Sharon is, I don't think she mind if I say, it's late 60s, let's say. And this is one of the most exciting developments that I've seen in her work for the last decade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I remember being taught by her at Sydney Girls Line Art School. And
she is a brilliant teacher, is she not?
Oh, yeah, she's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the pictures where the figures weren't hidden.
Exactly. Well, they were very much sort of genre street scenes, weren't they? People lingering, waiting for buses.
Yeah.
This is terrific. Because I say, anybody who knows American field painting will know the name Mark Toby with his mists and his almost pointillist sort of retake.
It is a bit one. Do you think for a minute it has a sense of Hiroshima ash encompassing everything?
No.
She does have that amazing painting
of London.
I love, and it's some people, like you said, in the street scene. I think somebody's at a bus stop and they're smoking a vape.
Oh, yes.
Oh, really?
The figure is half disappeared.
Yeah, disappeared the top. Oh, it's quite well known. Yeah.
Such a good
but
image.
that I think opened the gateway to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering, it's like you're in the world of that painting.
Yeah. And it's breaking out of kind of the vernacular subject. without it. Yeah. But touching upon something, as I said before, something very remarkable about the familiar, making the familiar unfamiliar. Yeah, big idea. Nice. Okay, this is by Kate Murdoch. It's called Meet To. Yes, that's right. So a play on the Me Too, kind of.
Oh, right.
Oh, sorry, you were laughing before I even told you.
Just on the other train.
Yes, I was just going to say. Never mind. Right. And as I say, her work's always about found objects, about sexism, misogyny, objectification of women. And of course, the idea of being sort of tied up like a sort of Sunday joint, and that is really a butcher's hook.
Oh, nice.
And of course, what does butcher's hook mean? It's slang, isn't it? It's rhyming slang for look.
Ah,
the gaze.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah. As it was called before the gaze was used.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at me.
You better put
You're looking at me.
People like me, you better put on.
Right. Now this is a terrific little piece, and it sits together with Alex Price's piece. This is called Heap, right? Alex has a piece in the most recent John Moore's, okay? And David, this is a book cover, if not a whole book. I'm not sure how much of the book is there. I think it's actually a whole book that's been taped closed. And I think the title of the book is called Docile Dogs.
Oh, nice.
These are the best kind, of course. Yeah. But David's work, sometimes they're very, very large canvases, and they're collaged, bits of canvas painted and cut. But there's a finesse to his work that's so, it's just such a joy to see. The idea of mindfulness, etc. And attention. Exquisite. And as I say, this could only be a painting. It's literally one of those, it's so easy to overwork a painting like this, or kind of, your danger of being understated, etc. But it can only be a painting. It's just delicious. I mean, literally, sort of sumptuous. It's called Heap.
Heap. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because things are collapsing, in a heap. Right. This is a plate. A plate. They are. That's what else do you need to know? And it's got that pie crust finish, very sort of 18th century sort of folks sort of handling, and it's called Cart. Now, I know that probably anybody under the age of 40 looking at this will not be familiar with the expression "putting the cart before the horse."
Yeah.
Right, shock of recognition. Yeah, so that's the eBay cart. Yeah. Yes, or the basket, as it's quite often, or Amazon or whatever. But Karen's work is terrific. She ran a sort of almost situationist thing called the Jug Foundation with her late husband, Terry Bond. Okay. Anyway, right, now it's by Christopher Cook. Christopher's just had a show in New York. He was, he showed with me, I chose him to accompany me to a Biennale in the south of France 30 odd years ago. It's called Probability Amplitude. And as I say, I'll stand corrected, but I think what Christopher's described this as, it has a field of it's carbon, I believe. I think it's carbon. I haven't got the full details here. But it's really, you can see, very, very viscous. And he's pulling it and pushing it and combing it and letting it run and flux. And you think, this is terrific, this partnership. And then gradually, things that have a slightly imagistic sort of, one of those enlargements of a sort of fly's ear or something, I don't know. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Things that we think are images, they're nascent in the material, and he starts to draw them out. But the thing about Christopher is his judgment is such that he's not looking for images, he's finding things that infer rather than describe. Huh, okay? And this is Eleanor Rodwell. Sorry, have I got that right? Yes, Eleanor Rodwell. Now, Eleanor works in the, was did a residency at the Art Station, which is the art centre that this project is going to next year. Okay. Eleanor makes exquisite little bronze castings of thorny sort of twigs and stuff. But she showed me this some time ago, and I thought, how wonderful just to have something so direct and so fresh and so unpretentious and so beautifully. And everything she does is with great sensibility Yeah, and sensitivity. There's a finesse to it. Basically it's about her sensibility, about consciousness. Because I actually think, when painting or art or creativity is generally good, it's consciousness raising.
Yeah.
Talk about consciousness raising. This is Sabrina Shah, who is also in the most recent Moors, with a huge painting of a table. So we got chatting, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to show a piece of her work? She said, I've got just the thing. I'd like you to have this. So I think it's probably a gift. It's called Care, right?
All right.
But of course, and as soon as you hear the word care, right, you think about Care Bears. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right. But the best riff on Care Bears is the one in The Simpsons when Homer is having a hallucination.
Yeah.
He sees what he thinks is a Care Bear approaching him, a big tubby fluffy pink thing.
Yeah.
But then suddenly the bear gets a tire iron and starts slapping it in his palm, and Homer says, what kind of bears are you? What kind of Care Bears are you? He said, we're intensive Care Bears. Right.
And no, it's going to be comedy.
Yeah, right, yeah, laugh out loud. Know what I mean? Right, okay, very quickly. Right, in the corner here is a piece of 3D printing. It's done by Kevin Leverington, and Kevin is a very good friend and a neighbour, lives in the village. He's a brilliant engineer, toolmaker, engineer, makes, decks for skateboards, all sorts of things.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, he was I think Kevin was one of the original sort of South Bank skaters in his day. Oh,
okay.
yeah. Kevin's a bit younger than me. But, and by the way, during the opening on Saturday, Kevin will be having his 3D printing machine working downstairs.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It will be, yes. That's at 2:00. It's in the middle of the afternoon.
So it's every bit of that 3D printed?
Yes, it's 3D printed, the whole thing, except for the cable, of course. But the earphones and all the rest of it are.
That's really cool.
It is.
Right.
But it's the cassette inside that got me.
Yeah, the
You think,
cassette.
How do they do that?
They do.
Yeah. Right. Now, this is a fascinating one. It's the End Collectors. Right. Now, this is by Farah Faruqi, and Farah lives in, I think the subject, it's a fairly typical street scene. It's very much a genre scene, rather like the works that Sharon had been making for years, yeah? The only shift with this one is that because Farah, like many other savvy sort of painters of this type, have decided that it's very much a sort of, it contains too much convention, this sort of work. There's a sort of, a cliche can creep in too easily. So it's just diaristic or narrative. So what she does to actually sort of shake up her practice, paints them upside down.
Paints them upside down?
Yeah, and does not allow herself to see them this way up until she doesn't know what else to do. Yeah, okay? Well, of course it is. But that's why the funny sort of splayed space, right? Yeah. But also, if you look at the eyes carefully, they all look like fried eggs because when things are the right way up, we know where the pupil will be. But when you're painting it upside down, there's no orientation.
That's weird.
I think it's a terrific little painting.
Why does it look like everybody's robbing each other secretly by the tree?
I don't know, Rob. I don't know. You try. Okay, right, very quickly. Moving on. A painting by Fleur Patrick. Now, Fleur has a show on, I think, in Northampton, a gallery, somewhere like that. These are terrific paintings. They're really slow. They take some time. And after a while, you think, why is it that I feel I'm somewhere between dreaming and waking? No, that's real magic there. And again, like Joe Whittle, there's a finesse, an intensity, a real mindfulness at work. And of course, this is by my good old friend William Fever, or Bill Fever. Every Christmas, not every Christmas, as Sally pointed out, he probably starts them in January. He paints 200 landscapes of the Northumbrian landscape, which is where he's been living for had a house for years. But they are such beautiful little things. I mean, they're terrific.
It's a really nice landscape.
It is. But he's also, along with Narby Price, is two of the big movers in the Ashington Group Preservation Society. Okay. Oh yeah, Bill wrote Pitman Painters, so it's based upon his book. Was it a musical? I went to see it, and I think it was a musical, which at first I thought was rather incongruous. I enjoyed seeing it. But anyway, the Pitman Painters. And the reason I hung it with Rob Dunt's piece here.
Hello.
Yes, that Rob Dunt. is that basically these are two examples of painting, and painting is a dialogue. It's not an activity, and it's not about, this is true. I've got to tell you this. I was been working one day at the Royal College, and somebody said to me, who's now an RA, this woman said to me, we were chatting about painting, and she said, I don't like the kind of paintings where you can see what things are in them. And so I said, what, like Rembrandt? No. And she immediately snapped, no, you know what I mean.
Oh, right.
And I thought, the idea that, there's this false dichotomy between the sort of, the dumb is painting and the conceptual is not so dumb. And then there's either figurative or abstract. That's absolute rubbish. Those are descriptors just placed on things out of commercial or half-witted convenience, okay? Right. And I have tinnitus, so this really, I was going to say rings a bell, strikes a lot. There's no analogy, there's no metaphor for that. But I'll tell you what it does do, it's visually interfering. Yeah. I mean, I can put my glasses on, and yes, it'll focus up better, but then I'm still not quite sure if it's white on black or black on white or bright or black on black on white. And whether we're being stalked by some invisible sort of thing from another dimension.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, the doggy. Yeah. Now, okay.
Well, exactly. That's my theme of darkness, secret terror.
Okay, right. The next piece. This is Joanna Hislop. Now, Joanna's piece is called. I'm going to get this right.
What's that made?
New in. Well, hold on. I'll come to that in a minute.
Sorry.
Right. New in every moment. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if you, Rob, are familiar with the work of an Italian arte povera guy from the 60s called Pistoletto. Michelangelo Pistoletto. Yeah. Okay. It basically is the mirror man. Yeah. Images on mirrors, smashing mirrors with a hammer, etc. Performances. Right. Now, I just find this brilliant, this disruptive, because what we've got here is an almost trompe-l'oeil type surface, rough cast concrete or pebble dash or whatever that's been marked up, or maybe it's just sand and it's rivulets, it doesn't really matter. But there's a kind of play with visual kind of interference, the idea of sort of tricking the eye. And then here, when we were putting the show up, I walked past it and there'd be a flash every so often.
Oh, really?
And another one. Oh, yes, if you move around, there, it happens again. And the light breaks.
That's quite freaky.
Yes, yeah. So the whole of the world is animated. Well, the world is animated, yeah. Paintings are notoriously static. And this one is one of those that addresses that anomaly. Yeah. And I just think it's absolutely delightful because the amount of time that attention this has had whilst we've been putting it up and discussion has been amazing.
Oh man, alive! I hadn't realised it's completely flat.
Yeah. Oh no, hold on. There's no. That's.
I thought I didn't.
Yeah.
Until I got up to it just now. I thought it was.
That's right. So that's trompe-l'oeil. Yeah. Again, like Roland, etc. And used in a very, very intelligent and misleading way.
Oh, it's absolutely bizarre.
So, and of course, everything that happens in the mirror is also sort of, somehow disassociated, yeah? Right, now this is by a woman called, I'm going to get this right, Susan Absalon, and it's called Inflatable. Now, Joe won the CBP prize in 2019, and Susan won it in 2021 with this painting.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, it's
it did the rounds publicly, yeah. And one of the things about this painting in particular is I cannot stop looking at it because I can figure out roughly, painter to painter, how she did it, etc. Yeah. But how the hell this came about, and it's called Inflatable, right? This wonderful sort of moment, and the intelligence to stop and just smudge these two bottom pieces here to wipe them through. So it's sort of sitting on a damp ground or whatever, being reflected. But it's got a wonderfully transparent, pneumatic sort of quality.
It reminds me a bit of when you did those paintings where you had like a bright yellow boat on a piece of water.
Oh yes, the float. Yes. Only I think this is rather better than some of those. Oh no, that's Now, this is right, we're getting towards the end now. This is David Keynes. David also has a painting in the most recent Moors. And it's called Big Idea. Now, exactly. So you realise the way that the painting is constructed, it's very, very aware of language. There's a kind of retro air. The thing I enjoy is the kind of false rationale of things like the shadow of the pipe. See the way it goes down over his chin and onto his chest, right? There's lots, and everything is sort of slightly stylized. It's got a sort of Braque meets Bertie Wooster sort of,
That's really weird.
Yeah, and that funny highlighting. As I say, David is involved, I think, with a magazine graphics, but there's a lot of cultural referencing there. Yeah. He pulls it off really well, particularly with a title that so undermines any kind of pretension called Big Idea. Yeah, right. And of course, what a lovely foil, because we don't know what he's painting, you know, I mean, that's irrelevant. By the way, the Braque reference is to the wood grain, particularly that lovely piece at the top. This is called Gaia's Garden by Sarah Florence, right? And I just think it's absolutely exquisite. She's painted interiors of Petworth House in a similar way. And again, they fragment, they fall apart. There's something about her empathy with the material, you know, that is really absorbing. I mean, this curious sort of path that leads back through the centre of the piece. Right, smashing. And this is by, again, somebody who had a painting in the most recent John Laws. It's by Caroline Gorick, right? And Caroline, who I've met a few times now, we've been talking a lot about kind of reductive painting, where you pull the ground back through. She's obsessed with very, very simple objects. She's obsessed with the idea of light and how it gradually, you know, the magic, the transformative magic of painting, where at first there was just a pool of coloured stuff, and then suddenly you summon something out of it. Yeah, so it's got alchemy about it. And this is by Kate Wilson. Now, Kate's sense of description, the discipline of this, and the mindfulness. This one, I mean, look at the multi-layering of the painting. This is really, she's really in the moment when she's painting this stuff. Yeah. And she doesn't take any shortcuts. There's sort of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 different layers of painting where the greens are getting, tonal range is getting wider or brighter and sharper, and the strokes are getting wider, so the scale. Real intelligence of painting, really being present. Talking of which, this is The Office by Robbie Bush, and I think it's very difficult to avoid kind of cooking type epithets, you know, words like delicious and scrumptious, but every little stroke, look at it, and it all mounts up. There is an internal logic. You know, after a while, you see the characters sitting there with their screens in the office. And there's this camera on a tripod.
That's an interesting sort of foil to your ones of the bike workshops.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah, very much so. And also a completely different approach.
Yeah.
But Robbie paints huge cityscapes and things.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, and all of them are, they are miasma, they're wonderful. Now, what you don't often see in contemporary group shows is paintings of ecclesiastical interiors.
Yeah.
And I thought,
it's a serious missing.
Exactly, a serious gap in our things. This is, it's by Ian McKillett. Now, Ian is ordained, he's painter. And I met Ian about 20 or 30 years ago. He was doing an MA at the time. And it's called Woolpit, which is a cathedral at Woolpit, I think. Is there a cathedral? There's definitely, and it's got timber beams and all the rest of it, 13th century or something. And it's called Aspirations to Immortality. Well, that was the kind of idea that sort of closer to my God, etc., and being lifted by these extraordinary things. The thing that I love about this painting is the obsession with it. I mean, because before he glazed it in this rather sort of purple into sort of these colours, which aren't the normal colours of kind of the heavenly bodies, etc., right? This is kind of fighting with the earthbound as well as the kind of transcendental or the transient, And there are just exquisite moments. But Ian's work is about that. It's a bit like the Fra Angelico thing, about the painting being its own act of worship. It's an act of devotion and worship. And Ian's love of painting and, the world generally is breathtaking. He's one of those people who has real faith.
Real faith.
Yeah. Really doesn't. And we've got one more piece, and it is last but no mean least. This is by Willem Keyes. Now, Willem Keyes' work, it's very... One of the things that Willem wants is to abandon authorship, and I think he's done it very nicely here, because this looks like it was found, okay? It's either a fossil, but basically it's a monotype that's been with ink, and bits of plants are used, and they're crushed under great pressure. And if you look at the back, you can see he's been pouring plaster on them and then packing it down and compressing it. I just think they're breathtaking. They really are, because everything Willem does, he's been rethinking the kind of received idea of what it is to be an artist. Okay, more rigorously, I would suggest, than just about anybody I've ever met.
That's really
He's definitely very intelligent. His background is very fascinating, but his approach to sculpture, painting, whatever it is, creativity generally, is where he wants to... It's as if he's investing what he's made with what he calls geological time that is outside of our experience, yeah? And also a dissociative author as well, or just, you know... Because there's no clear hand, there's no manner here. There's reason, there's schema, there's methodology. I think it's breathtaking.
It really feels like geological structure.
Absolutely. Oh yes, we're referencing
immediately from rock.
Yeah, but we're referencing all the time from found phenomena.
Yes.
Not things that humankind have created. That's my lot, and it's now over to Justin. To talk about his lot.
Right, Justin. Tell me about this crazy thing. What is it?
Well, Graham very generously invited me to create a show within the show.
Yeah.
And I suppose thinking about that, it felt really relevant because Graham talks about the idea of discourse in painting. And a part of my practice, in a sense, deals with, or one strand of it anyway, is I often make objects or installations or environments that bring other artists together. So I quite often make wall drawings, or I've made furniture-like pieces like this before, that are designed or created with these works in mind. So this piece I've created, it's got the work of 7 artists on it, but the object itself, I think about it, I make them like sculptures. So I don't really make it like a piece of furniture. I sort of start at the bottom and work my way up and make it as I go. But it is designed very much with these specific works to be hung on it.
So do you know where they're going to go before you put them?
Yeah, so this is, it's a sense, well, ostensibly a shelving unit, but the idea was here is to turn that on its head a little bit so that when you came in, you actually see through the unit, you see it in silhouette. And all the work is pretty much hung, apart from 2 pieces, on the sides of the shelving unit. So... and I'll talk you through.
I've just got one question, one of my stupid ones, is why would you spend all the time building this when you could have got one from IKEA and stuck some stuff on it?
Yes. It's a rock type question, yes. I think, but it's a good question because what's really important to me is that the piece of furniture itself, it kind of has the same thinking behind it as any artwork would. So I'm very interested in the materials themselves having some meaning. So all of these black end pieces are culled from Rosalind, my partner, her grandfather's bookshelf, which we inherited after he passed away. Those had meaning, and those were actually a part of a previous sculpture, and I've kind of cut them up and reused them here. There's a piece at the bottom that was Rosalind's mother's bookshelves, and then there was 2 other pieces of wood which I acquired, which are really old bits of mahogany. So the idea is that the materiality of the thing has its own story and has its own, has had a life.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
So in a way, it's kind of operating as...
So you feel quite emotionally invested as you build and chop this thing off?
Yeah, I think it's like trying to... I don't want to put any more crap into the world. I don't want to buy another piece of IKEA furniture. So in a sense, if I'm building it, I want to build it for life. Or to last. So, and I like the idea of something being built that has the rationale of these other objects behind it. So I quite like the idea of, when I thought about putting all these objects in the shelves, I thought, well, I'm going to block out all the light. So wouldn't it be interesting to hang them all on the sides and stagger my shelves. So that's how the rationale kind of works.
Nice.
And then in terms of the choice of the artists on it, an interesting thing, again, going back to Graham and the way that Graham curates his exhibitions, you've talked about, it's important, often you choose the people, and you choose things that go beyond your own taste, that are curious. And I began to think about the people around me that I'm really interested in. And so, as it happens, I selected these fairly quickly, but what I realized in retrospect, that all of the things here are pretty much unconventional in terms of they're not regular painting on canvas.
Okay.
In this straightforward sense, almost all of these things are painting on another object or with another object. And I'm quite interested in things that exist at the edges of what we'd consider, painting.
Yeah.
So, for instance, this is a good one to talk about, which is Richard Perry, his sculpture 3 Stack, and he makes these incredibly labour-intensive stone sculptures. So he carves these, and but he quite often then paints the surface as if it were an abstract painting.
Okay.
And I find this idea really appealing, that he then treats that surface like an opportunity for painting, but it's the language of his painting. It's the language of flat painting, flat abstraction, this kind of applied to a surface.
That's cool.
Then in this case, what's really interesting, he has this kind of dynamic between the very finished planes. So there's a kind of architectonic, geometric language going on, but he also has these completely broken shards, and he does something really risky, which is he spends all of this time cutting these planes and polishing them. But the broken parts, there's a real moment of jeopardy, because I think he has to make a cut and then basically hits them with a hammer.
Oh, wow.
And they come out how they come out.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Which is, after all that effort, you'd think that's a very dangerous thing to take on. So I just think they're fascinating as objects, and things like the way that they're cut into, and then the painted surface. Huh. That sort of takes me, it's quite good to speak about Fabio then. Fabio Almeida is an artist from Brazil, and he's an artist from a city in Brazil called Porto Alegre. And if you see, most people that know Fabio's work wouldn't recognize this. Okay. This is a really different and strange piece from him. But most of his work is made from, he paints lots of different pieces of paper, and they sit in the studio in boxes, and those are things in themselves. And eventually he collages and constructs these paintings with paper, with all of these different kind of surfaces, but they're very much about the surface quality. They're about going back to where he's from. I think it's a lot to do. Being in his studio, you see there's lots of photographs of walls in Brazil, and in Porto Alegre they have this very particular graffiti that's very unusual. So I think this piece is really just an experiment in surface. And then there's this kind of very architectural kind of way of constructing a painting, like putting 2 bits of wood together. Well, I was going to go to a 1.
Oh yes, 1.
Yeah. I like that one.
And this is a really interesting one, and I had such an interesting conversation with Juan about this piece. It's called, I want to get the title right, so I'm going to look at my notes. It's called Untitled Assisted Fresco.
Good night.
Which is, there's kind of a lot to unpack. And this is a painting that, it's ostensibly a monochrome sat on 2 brackets. And he did a project called Assisted Monochromes, where he made a monochrome painting 1 a week for a year.
Oh, wow.
So he had 51 paintings, and there was 1 week where he didn't make one, and there's just a photograph of a screw on the wall.
That's cool.
But this one continues that series, but it came out of his residency in Rome, and he went to study icon paintings and frescoes.
Right.
And I was just fascinated by this idea that how would you end up here from the study of icon paintings and frescoes? So he began to talk to me about how those icon paintings, they're often small wooden panels which were hinged, or they were often moved around or taken in procession. So they were kind of like traveling paintings for one thing. And so then the other big thing about those paintings, I think, he talked about the idea of this being a devotional painting. So that idea of there just being a sense of devotion to this single colour and painting the canvas. And then this display device, which is like a hinge, which relates back to those paintings. So that was that. And in terms of the display, I thought that it was really interesting for it to have its own kind of little spot on the back. That's like a small moment of, it's almost like there's a cross in the wood, so there's like a religious moment in the wood panel behind. So then we will move on to, let's start with Peter Liversidge at the top.
Yeah.
So I've known Peter Liversidge for a long time, and his practice is really fascinating. And to talk a little bit about something that I think we'll talk a little bit more about, but the idea of the intention behind his work is really fascinating. There's a lot of works that come in pairs. So he does pairs of Polaroids, he does pairs of winter drawings, and there's lots of works in multiple as well. So what you're looking at is, this is a real stone that he's found on a beach. You know, of the millions of stones on the beach, he chooses this one, and something behind that choice is that it has a face-like quality. He's interested in the idea of pareidolia, which is how we are preconditioned to recognize faces in almost any object. It's the first thing that
it's imprinting,
our brain is taught to do, recognize your mum. So pareidolia is something that he often refers to. Then the second stone is watercolor on clay, and it's a copy of the first.
It's freaky.
And there's a couple of things there, aside from the sort of absurdity of the activity, which I can't help but enjoy. There is something about putting objects in pairs where once you do that, it makes you focus on the quality of a single object. So this pairing, there is something I have to read you, because very quickly, because the first time I saw Peter do work with stones was in a show many years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago, in this show.
Hey, the book just comes off your bookcase.
Yeah, all the books on the bookcase were books given to me by the artists. I asked them to give me things that have been an influence.
That's cool.
So Peter makes proposal books for his shows, and they're ideas. He writes proposals. And the idea is that those ideas in the book that don't ever get realised are almost his most important works, because they walk around in the heads of people. People imagine the works. Anyway, the first works I saw of his that were to do with stones, he did a piece based on an installation based on Montana, the Montana Plains. And it was called Boulders, Rocks and Stones. And the funny thing about it is he just took packing materials and brown packing tape and wrapped them up really quickly, and he made thousands of these, like maybe 4,000 little stones and boulders, and they were scattered through the gallery. And when you saw them and you read the title, you knew exactly what you were looking at. There was a big shortfall between packing tape wrapped in brown tape, packing materials wrapped, and the thing itself. So the work was operating in this gap between what it is. And these are very interesting because he's kind of closed that gap in a way. But he said something that I think really gets to the heart of something about the practice. And I'm going to read it from here because I'll get it wrong and it's too good. He says, about the rocks, they are fragile in a way that rocks obviously aren't. He's talking about the boulders, rocks and stones. I've made about 4,000 of them in the past 18 months, and I like the labour-intensive, repetitive process. It's like the reverse of being in prison. Instead of breaking rocks, you're making them.
That's cool.
That's a good art statement. So that gives you an idea of his practice. I'm going to have to... We talk about Karen David here. This piece is, again, thinking about intention is fascinating because it's a painting made on a book, and it's made with acrylic paint and a... I'm not sure if it has a technical name, but like a food piping.
Like sort of, like a piping bag?
Bag, even I'm not sure which. And so that's a kind of strange and unusual use of paint. And then
That's the technical term.
Yeah. And then the book is a book by somebody called Shirley MacLaine, who was the sister of Warren Beatty. She was also a movie star, but she was a prolific writer of kind of esoteric self-help books.
Yeah, she was, wasn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, weirdly enough, I
began to look into this. Yeah. And I just think that there's something about the idea of the soul of the material. So in a way, everything that you would need to get from this book could be found in this paint.
I like it. Okay, so the soul of the book has come out into the paint then.
Yeah, or something close to that. She also says something very interesting, which is her whole research thing. She did a PhD, and it's really fascinating. And the PhD is about this kind of fictional commune. Okay. And again, the thing that she says I really love, which is there are a series of paintings informed by a fiction of an imaginary commune whose residents search for a viable essence.
Nice.
And then she says, in this fiction, the residents run out of painting supports and decide to upcycle books from the commune library to paint on.
Ah, that's pretty cool. I like it.
There's kind of, again, there's a humour in the work, which I think is very funny. Cool. So last couple, we have Sacha Bowles. And again, Sacha Bowles is a painting on an object. It's a painting on a postcard.
Yeah, it's nice.
And I love these works because it's kind of appropriation. It's dealing with the kind of history of painting in a very light way. I particularly like this one because it's a quote from a Peter Doig painting. And his painting is of a painting of a rainbow on an underpass in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a very famous underpass.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a quote of a quote of a quote. And she also sometimes returns these postcards, or she has a series called Taking Liberties with the Masters, where she paints on reproductions of Spanish portraits, which I think Graham has written about.
Yep.
So we have some of her books on the bookshelf here.
Nice.
Graham has one here. Let me show you the paint.
Yeah, go ahead. Show Rob.
Yeah.
So this is Taking Liberties with the Masters.
Nice.
And then she would return these reproductions to a book that has one page in it with the one piece.
All right. That's pretty cool. Those are my sophisticated answer comes out. So she's painted on that, hasn't she?
She paints directly onto the
It's
reproduction.
so mentally careful, you can barely tell where she's painted onto it, actually.
I think that's quite important.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's that, and then the very last one. Have I missed anyone bar Rosalind? No. The very last one is Rosalind Davis, and this is a really fascinating piece from a new body of work that we were recently. Rosalind is my partner, and we were on a residency in Mexico City, and she found, we were having these kind of storms every day, and she found, peeling off of the billboards, all of these amazing kind of scraps of paper, and she made a whole host of these really beautiful kind of interventions onto these pieces of paper. And they kind of feel like, the thing I like is, a lot of her work is about transformation in space, and often refers to architectural space. And I really like this because it's of architecture. It's fallen off the side of a building.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And then the other thing is just that the interventions themselves are very, very delicate, almost as if the paper was found with this image in it. So she's really working with the thing that she's found. And I just think they're like really delicate. They feel, again, archaeological, like something found, like it's like a strata of the city, a layer of the city.
That's a bit of sort of crazy chaos into her work.
Yes, it adds something that's almost the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Those kind of formal structures and spatial structures, then applied to this kind of like found object.
Nicely kind of fragile as well.
And beautifully fragile, and they've all got these strange shapes where they've just been torn off or fallen off the wall.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is just that all of the books on the bookshelf were given by the artists, and I just asked them to give something that kind of might give you a slightly left field introduction to their work.
Okay, nice.
Something behind their work. So again, it relates back to intention and what might inform the things behind the work.
Okay, I like it. Okay, Graham, so let's have a quick roundup of this craziness. just to get you going, I think the show should be called Secret Terror, Fake Happiness. Mainly because I think all the things that you think like jokes, like I generally think that's a bit like sort of Hiroshima stuff falling on the people there, sort of secret terror.
Okay.
You've got dangerous sort of wood nymphs escaping from the painting over here in the corner.
Yeah, that's Twinkle
Troughton.
Yeah.
You've got the sort of death imp riding a dog over here. And then you've got sort of nice things, but nice. I'm sort of saying it nice on purpose, in that
Yeah, I know you're
nice.
Doing that. Yeah, I'm not going to rise to the bait. Yeah. Yes.
So you better give me your roundup of what the show is about.
Oh, the roundup of the show is about the quality of the work and the quality of thought. Yeah. It's all about intention. Yeah. Ambition is no longer located in scale, as I've said before. Yeah. The idea that just because she made a big picture, it was more ambitious than the previous smaller pictures. It's nonsense, as has been proven by people like Jo Whittle, of course, with her work. No, this is all about intensity, intention. It's basically a recognition that painting is a pursuit, as Stephen Dunn beautifully put it, of the philosophy of mind. It's not a displacement activity. For some people as a hobby, that may be the case. But I think everybody in this room, everybody in their own different way, is finding their way through the old existential thing about what is there to do and what's of value anyway. Yeah. And I think we're riding for a major reset, because the disconnect between the community of practice, projects like this, and the CBP and masses going on throughout, most of which are going on away outside London these days for obvious reasons. It's a terrific. I think it's a very exciting time. There's some great painting going on, but it's not being acknowledged because of the disconnect and the way that capital, celebrity, and the media have, are basically shut out. They've got their narrative. They're done. They can go home now. Yeah. They're not interested in this. This is what fascinates me. I actually started asking people, when did you last go to the Tate? Thinking I was a backslider, and they go, Christ, I can't remember. What about the Hayward? Oh, is it still open? Like the Tate in Liverpool. I mean, people up there don't give a toss that it's closed, to be honest. Yeah. As long as the Walker remains open, and the 6 other marvellous museums run by NML. Yeah, of course. No, this is tapping into a what I think of as a seismic change in values, core values.
Cool. Brilliant. Graham, I've loved it.
Thank you.
Justin, really good fun.
Thanks.
So, everybody needs to come and see it, basically.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
By appointment or by accident.